Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And today's episode is the 53rd of the year and the last one of 2024. It's been quite a decent year in terms of podcasting. So that's a bit over one a week or more than one a week because I have a bit of a break. But this episode is going to be the second half of the Q&A questions that I asked a week and a bit ago because we got such a big response from that there was too much for one episode. So the rest will be in here. And there'll be a bit of an announcement at the end to the final question. Um, but as I mentioned last week, Cass Hook from Outback Gardens had a heap of questions, and there's two more in this one. And that first one is, what's your favourite aspect of your job and least favourite? Favourite part is seeing gardens finished, and probably more so seeing them finished like a year or two after we've been there. So every now and then, like just coincidentally today, I've got to go out and like replace a plant or fix a bit of irrigation or something, just do something really minor. But I'd actually like going to go out there to see how it's all looking, especially this time of year when it's everything's been growing really well. The project I went to today, everything was flowering and looking amazing. So I do like going back and just seeing it finished because when you're working in it, it can get a bit like a job sometimes, and you're just sort of thinking of what the next part is that needs to get done rather than thinking of the overall project. So you're thinking of individual things that add up to the sum of the project. So I do like to just sit back and look at a project after it's done, which you don't usually get time to do. Weirdly, the least favorite, it's a tie between excavation and the weather, and then like as in when I say weather, I mean rain and wind. Heat doesn't bother me, but can't stand the rain or the wind. So then, if you combine a rain day when you're doing excavation, that is just hell on earth. So that is definitely my least favorite part about my job, working in the rain. And her second question was, what's the most exciting slash inspiring job you've worked on that you're most proud to be a part of? I reckon it would be the garden show build that we did last year that I designed. That was clearly the most proud of. It still blows me away to look back at it to think that I designed it. So that's a bit of an old one, but I did often say I only did one good design a year a few years ago, and that was when I would do garden shows. But but I think I've started to increase that ratio and doing a bit more now, which is good. So the more coincidentally, the more you do, the better you get. Funnily enough, but yeah, that's in terms of any garden, that is definitely the one I'm most proud of. But the in terms of actual projects like normal landscape projects, the one that we finished just well tomorrow um, is the biggest one we've done, and that was also a proud moment because there had been a design done. Like, I don't know how many years ago it was done. Could even be 4 years ago that the design was done, but the client wasn't as excited as they could have been about some of the plant selections. So they got me to go through and make some changes, and then yeah, there's a couple of sections that I didn't change, and it's extremely obvious to see which ones I didn't do um, in a good way for me because the bits I did look phenomenal. So yeah, and that was a pretty awesome project to be a part of. And again, it looks good now that we're first finished or when we finish, but yeah, in 12 months, I can't wait to see how it all looks when it starts to fill out. Because as much as I do like mulch, I don't like the look of it. It does a good job, but I'd rather see plants. Next question is from Lucy B 1528 saying methods to get a good even mound for a bit of undulation in a garden. I reckon using water would would help to make sure that it's at the compacted level that you want it to be. So it's not great to have a bit of mud in there if you're putting soil in and then adding water to it, but that's what's going to happen when it rains anyway or gets watered. And in that time, when the water goes through there, it's going to get rid of any air pockets and it'll all sort of drop to the level it's going to go to. So you're better off doing that. um, when you're first putting it in there, so that then you can make it look how you want it to look rather than doing it with loose soil and then putting plants in and then finding it drops in certain areas other than others. So compacting it as much as you can is a good way to do it because it's still always going to be easy to dig in because you're not going to be using an excavator to compact it or a sheep's foot roller. So yeah, adding a bit of water and even just sort of soaking it overnight because you don't want to be standing on it if it's soaked with water because it'll just be you're making holes. But compacting it with water and flooding it and then letting that sort of get rid of any air pockets overnight will be a good way to do it. So it takes a bit more time, but it's going to happen like that anyway. So you better have to take a bit of time at the start to do it properly rather than trying to rush it. On Country Landscaping said, do you think it's worth getting an apprentice on or a labourer on first? Yeah, I've always found it interesting. I've never really used labourers because when I look at you've got a labourer who might have no experience, and then you've got an apprentice who's got no experience, and you're going to be paying the labourer a lot more than what you'd be paying the apprentice. So I don't understand why you wouldn't just have a crack at having an apprentice on who you keep on and train them up because a labourer is more likely to be looking for other jobs than what an apprentice will. An apprentice probably gets a job and then says that that's where they're going to stay till they get qualified or whatever. So I think they're more of a long term option and they cost less. So yeah, they're like if the labourer's got experience, that might be what you need, but it depends what you need. Whether you um, want someone just to be able to do the basic things, then an apprentice is a good one to start with, and then they can start to gradually do more once they master the basics. But yeah, I've never really had labourers on and haven't understood um the want for them that other people have. So, but I am open to being educated on why a labourer would be a good option. But yeah, if it was me, it'd be an apprentice. And like the apprentices do sometimes know nothing, even 6 months into their apprenticeship. But but yeah, they're still going to cost less than what a labourer will, and there's no difference between a labourer and an apprentice. If depending on how you employ them, they can be the same person. So it's just a fee difference there. Brandon Hudich has said, if you were to do anything else as a job, what would it be and why? My initial goals when I was at school was to be a professional sportsman, so whether that was going to be in cricket or football, but turns out my talents weren't good enough to match my ambitions, and my work ethic was up there at that as well. So that didn't work out, but that's what I would do in the dream scenario. Um, if you didn't mention the word job in the question and said if you would do anything else, what would you do? I'd probably say be retired. Um, um, could be a grass is green on the other side thing, but I'm looking forward to being retired, even though it's a little while away. But just the thought of having nothing to do, yeah, I find that quite exciting. You can just go for a walk whenever you want, do whatever. So, but my old man is retired recently, and he still works because he doesn't like having anything to do. So it could be different once you start doing it, but yeah, but be a professional sportsman or retired or work at the Commonwealth Bank like I've done. Jackson Pilling said, "Who's the best corker slash waterproofer in the game that you know?" Starting with Jay. That would be Jackson Pilling, but also the worst because he's the only one I know. So um, that is that one. Summit Landscape Co. said, "Dream podcast guest." It's funny because I don't have one that I could think of off the top of my head. Um, like one of the like when I had Michael McCoy on, like that was one of my all-time favorite uh, interviews to do. Like he was just awesome to chat to, just insanely passionate fella. So like if I was gonna pick, yeah, I hadn't thought of the question beforehand, but if I was gonna pick another guest to have on, I reckon Michael would be up there that I'd speak to first. Just yeah, awesome to talk to. But yeah, there's no one I can really think of um Like there's been people I've asked that said no, but that doesn't make me want them more. That just means, whatever. Um, actually, someone I haven't asked. I don't know why I haven't asked him yet, but Graham Ross would be a good one to have on. So I might set him in my goal for next year. Um, See if I can get him on and have a chat. He'd obviously be an awesome person to talk to as well. Um, so yeah, I reckon we'll put down Graham Ross. Brad Hutch has said thoughts on landscape designers requesting a referral slash kickback fee in your quotes. So as I mentioned, I worked at the bank before, and when you were there, like when you're doing like home loans and that, like I know with what are they called, brokers, they have to specify that they're getting paid a referral fee for the by the bank that they're referring the loan to. So there was a lot of things that I saw where you had to declare that you're getting paid for a referral that you're sending. So, and yeah, I've seen it a few times. So I assume they're only doing that because that's the law. So I don't know whether it's actually legal for a designer to get a fee that they're not declaring that they're getting paid for. And that could be the same with paving suppliers giving fees. But I suppose that's more of a too tricky because it's not per project. Well, it is per project. So yeah, it's a bit of a grey area, but it's one that I'm not a fan of unless you're stipulating it that it's happening and being upfront and honest. Because like a designer might come along and say, I reckon this is the design. I reckon this landscaper here is a good one. So landscaper A is a good landscaper. Here's who you should choose. And then you could have the client go and get their own, like take the design and get their own quote. And landscaper A and landscaper B are quoting against each other. Landscaper B has got a price that doesn't include the kickback to the designer. And they could be the identical quotes apart from that. And landscaper A is more expensive because they've got that kickback for the designer. So it just makes it just creates like hidden things and just dishonesty. So um, if you're wanting to get paid a certain percentage of a project, say that's part of your fee. Say a design fee is this much, and like I don't know what if you, they should have to have some sort of organisation throughout the project. So if you want us to project manage the project as well, we'll get this percentage of the project cost. So then if the client doesn't want it, then they don't pay for it. So it's like when people say that they're doing they pay for it, that like a landscaping company say you pay for a design, it's $500 for a design, but you get that money back if we do the work. Like I don't think anyone actually gives the money back. They just say that they do when they do the quote. So I don't like that kind of option either. But yeah, I think I've had it once real early, and I said that's yeah, I'm not doing it. So like if you want money from the client, you ask for the money from the client, not going to make me look more expensive so that you can get paid. But I don't think, yeah, look, I don't think any of the top designers do it. None of the ones I deal with anymore do anyway. So, and there's things where designers can get money like plants. If they supply and install the plants, that can be an option. But again, you want to be upfront with that when the quote's going through. Woody Outdoors said, "What's your favorite part of design? Is it the hardscape, softscape, or material choices?" And it's funny how much that's changed. Like back 4 years ago, it would have been purely hardscape. I certainly do love the paving, but now it is absolutely the plants. I am turning into a plant nerd. Can't get enough of them. Um, yeah, just loving. And I'm finding the more I'm enjoying it, the better I'm getting at using them as well. And I'm still not, I'm still better at selecting them like by seeing them rather than putting them on a design and it works. I'm still sort of tweaking them a little bit, thinking, this will work different here. These ones all look a bit too much the same next to each other, so I've got to change that. So certainly still learning a lot, but that could also be why I'm enjoying that part of it because I'm learning a lot more the more I am in terms of hardscaping. I certainly don't know everything about hardscaping, but I've got a lot more to learn in the plant side of things than what I do in the hardscaping side of things. So, and everyone, most people like learning, so that could be why I'm enjoying the plants, or just because I'm getting older, so I'm becoming a plant nerd. Who knows? But but in terms of my favorite part about the design, that's not part of those three options. Seeing it, how seeing it in person and loving it is my favorite part. That's as I mentioned before, that's starting to happen more often than not. Um, but then again, you get the frustration of having to wait for it to look good. Dan Tupper has said methods for quoting larger landscaping projects. So I did message Dan back and mention that like we just did the biggest job we've ever done, and it wasn't like back when we first started doing projects like over $100,000. I used to get blown away thinking, "Oh, this is insane." But now our average project would be like our average would be probably 200,000, probably maybe somewhere between 170 and 200. So they're like big projects, but they're not doing anything different to a small project. You're just doing bigger amounts or more of everything. So if on a small project you might just be doing paving and garden beds and a bit of lawn, on this one you're doing paving, garden beds, lawn, barbecue bench seat, kitchen cabinets, fireplace. So you're just doing more things and bigger areas. So you're still only working one day at a time. You still quote to lay one pave at a time. The plants cost the same on a small job as what they do on a big job. There's just more of them or bigger. So when you dial it back down, it's not any different doing a small job compared to a big one. Like you could technically go a little bit cheaper on big ones in terms of like turf or garden beds because you can usually bulk in a lot more at once. Like you might get a truck in to tip a larger amount and move it around with a bobcat compared to barrowing it in on smaller projects. So you can actually do things a lot quicker. But there's also big jobs like walking from one side of the site to the other can take a while. Like they can be 100 meter approach, 100 meter block. So there's some things that take a bit longer, but I've found keeping the same rates. Like I don't charge rates, but working them out, they're similar. Uh, I'll make a lot more money on the big ones on those simple things. But then when there's those things like a fireplace or barbecue bench or some sort of more detailed construction, that's where I sort of have gone a bit slower. So so you make money in some areas and lose them in the other, but then you learn from that and change it the next time. But in terms of it's just like instead of doing 40 meters on 40 meters of 40 square meters of paving on one job, a big one might have 400 square meters of paving on a job. But again, you're still going to be laying one paver at a time, so it's just going to take longer. So you just got to allow for it longer and realize that the number at the end is just a number and it's not your money to spend. So it costs what it costs. And if that client wants to pay for that, then they'll pay for it. And if they don't, I'll let you know. Peter Donegan had a question. He said, why? But I also answered him with why not. So that is as he said, that's more of a optimistic question to ask back. So, and the final question is from T Corn, which is Trent Cornish from IMG, who run MIFCUS, saying, what can we expect from Joel at MIFCUS 2025? I think I mentioned it in the last Q&A that I'll be going back again to help with Andrew Laidlaw and Suzanne Kent Lister's garden with the Indigenous garden with the Wurundjeri folks. So we'll be doing that again for 2 or 3 days just to get the tip of the toes in. But the big announcement that I teased at the start, which I don't do that very often, is that MIFCUS will be the first of 2 garden shows that I'll be building at next year, with the second one being a little one that you may not have heard of, but it's in May, I think the start of May. It's called the Chelsea Flower Show. So I'll be heading over there to be part of the construction team on one of the big gardens over there. Thanks to Gareth Wilson So the episode I spoke with him, he said more than happy for you to come over. So I said, yeah, absolutely, sign me up. And then I was thinking, it's a long way to go, long time to be away from the family. So I thought I won't follow up with it because he'll probably forget that he said it anyway. And then next thing you know, he sent me a message saying he's still keen. So I had a flashback to I think the first episode I had Peter Donegan on when he said, I can't remember if he mentioned a particular person, but he said, if you get asked to go on a rocket ship, you just say yes and get on, or ask which seat I'm taking. Something along those lines, anyway. But sort of when you get a once in a lifetime opportunity, you don't ask any questions, you just say yes. So that's what I did. So it's always been a dream to go to the Chelsea Flower Show. And I've never been, so to actually get to build a garden there is going to be insane. So I imagine I'll be feeling similar to how I do at the moment because we're at the end of the year, and that is absolutely exhausted. Um, but it's only actually also it's 3 weeks to build, or 19 days to build, like from start to finish. But I think it's only the first 9 or 10 days is the actual construction, and then the plant teams come in, and I'm just part of the construction crew, not the plants. So it's actually only going to be 9 days. But then I've got to fill in time so that I can actually go to the Chelsea Flower Show afterwards and see it all finished. But yeah, still to iron out some details and work out exactly what I'm doing, and if I drop into Ireland to see my favourite Irishman while I'm that close. But yeah, that is pretty exciting. And that is the last episode for the year. As I mentioned, I'm absolutely cooked. We've been working on this massive job. I finished on Sunday at 5:30. Like I said, I've worked however many days it is. So what is that? Monday to Sunday is 7. And then it will be to Saturday. So we're going to work 13 days straight to finish the year. Body feels amazing, which is weird, but I am cooked. Never been more exhausted in my life. So running on fumes. Got 3 days to go, and then I will just collapse for one day, and then I've got to finish the landscaping course. So, and I've also got to design probably two designs. I've got two designs to do, but I'll push one back. Um, so that's how I'll be relaxing over the holidays by doing landscape designs and trying to hopefully finish the landscaping course to one day get that out. I did say to be out in January, but I don't think I specify. I think maybe I did specify the year, which was a mistake because we'll see how we go for January 2025. It'll definitely be out before January 2026, though, so that's something to look forward to. But yeah, that is the last episode for this year. I'll be taking a break and coming back probably in January. Certainly, it'll be early Feb at the latest for the first episode, because I'll have to get a few banked up because I'm going to be overseas for a bit of time. So I'm going to keep the podcast going while I'm there. And then when I'm over there, I'll probably be making some good contacts and have some more episodes to do when I get back, I reckon. So I can record them on Zoom. But thank you very much for everyone who came on as a guest this year. And I can't emphasize that enough how valuable, how much I appreciate the guests for coming on. It's certainly a lot of work for me to do the podcast, but if people don't give up their time to come on, then it wouldn't exist. So I am insanely grateful for everyone who's come on, and also everyone who tunes in and sends a message every now and then. They're always nice to receive. You don't need to send me any for saying that, um, but yeah, thank you very much for everyone who tunes in and shares an episode. Greatly appreciated, and I will see you next year.